That was Pink with Who Knew on Manchester 106.6. Listen to Funny People. My name's Jamie Kilday, and this week's funny person is George Cottier.
Hiya.
How are you doing?
Yeah.
Excellent stuff. If you've listened to Funny People before, you'll know James Beck is normally here, and he said last week he'd definitely be here, and he isn't.
Who is he?
He's my co-presenter slash... It's basically like, if you listen to the Chris Moyle show...
Yeah, Comedy Dave.
He's like my Comedy Dave. He's not really the presenter. He's just there and says a few things that are a bit witty.
Oh, right, so his actions don't negate his own name? Like Comedy Dave?
No, he's just called James Beck. He doesn't do anything Beckish. Is Beckish a word?
Yes.
Okay. Excellent stuff. So, as I say, I'm joined here by George Cottier. How are we okay? I'm sorry to drag you out of the sun.
Yeah, it's been sunny today. I drove here and I used the sat-nav, and the sat-nav took me to the wrong place. I don't know what happened, but it was like a tyre company with like there was a bad man just looking at us. I was in the car with a Liam Bolton comedian, and he was just kind of, we weren't even we didn't stop or anything. We weren't looking at him, and he just looked at us, and so he kind of caught our attention. I think he was like hosing his car or something. There's no one else around, and he just looked. And I was just thinking, what? And we drove past. It was fine.
But he was just giving you a funny look.
Yeah, and then there's like a tyre company called, what was it? Oh, something. I remember because I mispronounced tyres when I was on the phone to you.
Right,
I
okay.
said towers. I've got. I'll remember it now. It'll be fine.
Other tyre companies are available.
Yeah, it was. I can't remember. And it was a tyre company, and there was like a bumper on the road.
Right, okay.
What?
Just on the middle of the road?
How does that happen? Someone just left a bumper on the road?
They must have, I don't know, they might have rear-ended a car and then thought, I'll cut my losses and drive away.
Yeah.
And leave the bumper.
Or like a little boy.
No, maybe. Maybe they'd hit a little boy.
Oh, it's a horrible thought.
Or maybe the little boy was driving, maybe the little boy had stolen a car, didn't realise that the bumper was important, and just crashed the car and then thought, well, I might not need that, and carried on driving.
I'll tell you what happened.
Go on.
He was in his car, the little boy, and he just kind of, he's driving around the tyre company.
Right.
Because he'd heard from his mates at school, that's where you see ghosts. Anyway.
Right.
He went there and got on the car, and he slowed down, and he thought, oh, there's a bumper on the road. And so he got out to get the bumper, but when he got out to look to pick it up, it wasn't there. It'd been a ghost, but it'd been a ghost from the future, because then the car rolled forward and hit him, and the bumper fell off.
Right.
And it was what he'd seen in the future, the bumper off the car that was on his car that ran over him.
I'm gonna throw this out here and say I doubt that is what happened, but there's a chance that could be what happened.
Well, if you choose to be narrow-minded about that
about ghosts and the future.
Well, who knows what is a ghost?
It could be anything. Excellent stuff. Maybe.
My uncle saw a ghost.
Go on.
Right, my uncle, he worked in the circus in Barcelona. He moved there to work as a clown in the circus, and he had to leave because of an incident that was done to him by one of the other performers.
Okay.
Won't talk about that.
No.
Because it's horrible.
Okay, we'll gloss over that and we'll carry on.
So that's what they did to him.
Okay.
So he was in Barcelona, and he saw he had to be sacked because of what happened to him in the circus. He got the sack, and he left the circus, and he was homeless, and he had to sleep on his bike. Now you won't be able to see this at home, but he used to sort of sleep across his bike, like lengthways, so no one could nick it.
Right.
So he'd just be lying across it and sleep like that. Anyway, he saw a ghost.
Excellent. There'll be more from George Cottier later on in the show. Award-winning comedian.
Yeah, I won the frog thing.
The World Series. He was a winner of the World Series at the Beat the Frog in Manchester. So there'll be more from George Cottier later on in the show. We'll be talking about why you became a comedian. If you,
Are we going to talk about that then, or
we'll
no?
talk about that later. And we'll also be talking about a few things that have been up in comedy news, as well as things that have popped up on Chortle's website. In the meantime, here's Noah and the Whale singing Life Goes On 106.6. That was Life Goes On by Nora and a Whale on Manchester 106.6. Isn't it funny, people? My name's Jamie Kilday. This week's funny person is George Cottier.
Hello.
How are we doing?
Yeah, really good. We've just been talking about Radox.
We've just been talking in the Joe and Nora and a Whale about how odd the word Radox is.
Well, that, and I saw a hand wash which was made by that company.
Other cleaning things that exist.
Yeah, Bethnol.
Yeah.
That's one. Gramagene.
Gramagene?
Yeah. Bunf.
Yeah.
That's a Swedish one.
Is it?
Menktrenktazine. That's one.
I think you're making these up now.
I'm not. Anthony Oscorocopter's Wonderful Bath.
That exists. That exists. You can get that in IKEA.
You're just making that up.
No.
Hey, did you see the IKEA advert?
Which one?
The one, shoes! Shoes!
Somebody on Facebook was kicking off about that advert, saying how annoying it is, and it is really annoying.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get why. What is the whole? Oh, aren't men different than women? Which is something which kind of comes into comedy quite a lot. A lot of comedians use it as a way into a joke, as it were. Aren't men different than women?
Well, I wrote that advert.
Did you?
And so it's got Paul Perry in it.
Right.
He's good, isn't he? He goes, shoes, shoes. What are you, a centipede? Imagine that. Centipede would have loads of shoes. I wrote that bit. And Paul Perry, when we were filming it, he said, George, why would I think that Tiffany Stevenson is a centipede? And I said, look, Paul, you don't actually think that she's a centipede, you idiot, you stupid Scot, you idiot.
Yeah.
Right. He
Did he not take too well to that? No.
He looked at me blankly.
Okay.
Just like a stupid man would look at you.
Right. Okay.
And he goes, well, why have I said it then? I went, because the idea is, Paul, you're saying, what are you, centipede? Because centipedes have got loads of legs. Imagine how many shoes a centipede would have if
they wore shoes.
If they wore shoes. And he just went, oh, I don't get it. And I just said, just say it. Just say it and shut up.
And he did. And it made the advert. And it's out there.
Yeah, but you see, when he says it, he like laughs to himself a little bit like he got it, but he didn't.
Right, okay.
Idiot.
So if you watch the IKEA advert, if it's at home and it's on TV now, and you see him and he's laughing at it,
and he does another one where he goes, the only time my room looks messy is when I haven't cleaned my specs. That was my joke. I told him that. He didn't get it, but then he giggles. Now, if you're on Facebook, go on Facebook, look up Paul Perry with his little face, right, and message him, do a private message, and go, who do you think you are? Just put it in capitals, and go, who do you think you are? Yeah, George Cottier wrote, lovely, George Cottier, comedian.
Right, okay.
www.georgecottier.co.uk. My website.
That George Cottier is also the George Cottier is in the studio right now.
That's right.
Yep.
I went, who do you think you are? You stupid, stupid man. Right, well, send this kind of stuff anyway. Go, look, Paul, you think you're clever, being a comedian. We all know it's hard. Just, start laughing with your little, floor show buddies in the advert. You make something up yourself. I mean, I'm going to tell you exactly what to write, because I want them to feel the shock of each original one.
Okay.
Of people going, oh my God. look what someone sent Paul Perry.
And see where that gets you.
Yeah.
Excellent stuff. So
see where it gets you.
See where it gets anybody. See where it gets Paul. See how it works on his end.
I'll be honest, right? Are we off air?
No.
I'll be honest anyway. Yeah.
Well, it's okay. It's okay. We'll move on.
Just don't ask me about Paul Perry anymore, because
I
was at a gig with him in Nottingham. I do gigs all over the country. I get about 100 gigs a week.
Right, okay.
And he was there with me, and he said, have you got a cigarette? I went, no. And he said, yeah, you have. I went, I haven't. And he said, I saw you smoking before. I said, I don't smoke, Paul Perry.
Okay.
And he just started trying to grab my coat.
Right.
I don't know what he thought was in there. I thought cigarettes are in there. He just wanted my coat.
How bizarre. Very bizarre. But you say you do comedy?
Yeah.
At what point did you decide you wanted to be a comedian? What sort of brought that on?
What brought it on?
Yeah, what brought it on? At what point were you sat there and you thought, actually, I wouldn't mind standing in front of a room full of people and telling them stories?
I wanted a really, really, really hard challenge.
Right, okay.
And I thought, what is harder than stand-up comedy? Because I've seen them, you know, when they talk about comedy, the comedians,
Yeah.
and they said that it's harder. It's like being in a war.
Right, okay.
Phone in if you've been in a war, because it's not as hard as being a comedian. I don't know. I just like lampooning, really.
Right, okay.
I would call myself a lampoonist.
So you're not. So George Cottier, the lampoonist, would be the better term for yourself than the comedian.
Yes, and my teachers at school, I'd do impressions, right?
Right, okay.
Of the teachers.
Do you do these in your set?
No.
No, but you do them anyway. Carry on.
Most people don't know what the teachers were like, but I did these impressions of the teachers, and they were spot on. You know what I mean by spot on?
Yeah, like they sounded like the impressions worked. They were good impressions.
Yes,
yeah,
that's exactly what I mean.
yeah,
One might say you're spot on.
yeah. So one might.
And I was doing all these impressions of like the maths teacher, the PE teacher, the other PE teacher, the English teacher,
Right.
the geography teacher, the history teacher, the science teacher. There's 3 science teachers.
All of them.
One for
And you could do one for every single one of them.
Yeah.
Could you do one now?
Yeah. Which one? Who do you want me to do an impression of?
I think the maths teacher.
Maths teacher
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, don't. One of you. This homework's awful, George."
So that was the maths teacher.
Yeah.
Did he say that often then?
It's a woman.
Okay. That was an impression of George Cottier's maths teacher from high school, was that?
Yeah, I didn't get to high school. It was more like secondary school.
Right, okay.
It was. Can I say the name? Is that unfair advertising?
Of the school? You can say the name of the school.
It was St Anselm's College
Right, okay.
in Birkenhead. Now, here's a really funny prank you can play on them, right? If you know where it is, send your kids there, and it'll allow them to develop all aspects of their personality and skills in a Catholic environment.
Other schools are available.
Yeah. I'm not a Catholic. I'd just like to say I'm not a Catholic, so please still carry on coming to my gigs.
Okay. Excellent stuff.
Because I'm not one of them.
Okay. There'll be more from George Cottier later on in the show. In the meantime, here's Bombay Bicycle Club singing Evening Morning.